make Fremantle, Don, the progress there?
Yeah, look, they've probably, if not the form team in the comp, they're right up there. They've won 6 of their last 7, and they're playing some good footy. So another really good challenge come Saturday night.
No Sandlands, a bit of a boost there?
Yeah, look, we've heard that just when we came off the training track this morning. So I think they've sort of said that Griffin will come in and play. So little change, but you know, we've got to adapt around that as well. So, but if I was to say it helps, it probably does.
So is there any injury news from your front from training this morning?
No, we got through training well. Guys had a good session, so all clear, and we sort of head into selection and we'll go from there.
In the small time that we were there, it didn't seem as though Brodie Smith did too much work. Will he be right to go this weekend?
Yeah, well, Brodie's got a little bit of work to do in the next couple of days. He was doing some running today, and look, he completed all that really well, up to nearly max speed, so we're pretty positive on him at the moment.
What does a little bit of work look like, Don?
What's that?
What does a little bit of work look like for Brodie?
For Brodie, he'll have to do some more ball work and some. You know, we had a couple of guys even last week who did some stuff later in the week, which just was not quite ready to train on main session. It just means they do some on Thursday or Friday and make sure they're confident and they're comfortable and they tick off some things which our high performance guys want.
And Riley as well. And Riley as well.
Riley Knight, no, he full trained today, so he's available.
Does Dave McKay get a reprieve with Curtly Hampton's injury?
Well, we've got to assess what the right blend and mix is for our midfield. Obviously, with Curtly out, there's an opportunity there. David, unfortunately, didn't get a chance to play last week because he travelled with us. So we'll assess that at match committee as to what the best player is to come and blend in with that midfield group.
Is Harrison Wigg a guy you possibly look at to replace Curtly? Yeah,
well, Harrison's played really well the last couple of games in the Sandful, and he's starting to build a consistent patch of form, which has been something we've spoken to him about. He's had some good games, but we're after him to do it for regular weeks, and last week was off the back of a good performance the week before, so that was pleasing. And Scotty Thompson, played probably his best game for the year last week, so whether we go in that direction, I don't know. We'll see what match committee throws.
So with the Aaron Sandlands omission, just going back to that for a second, how does that change things for you? Like, obviously you would have planned to have go up against him. How does that change things?
Well, it'll change things just in terms of who's the ruck. I mean, it doesn't change obviously their midfield, which I think is pretty well regarded and recognised as high quality. So, without Sandilands, it probably just changes some of the things they might do in centre bounce or around the ground. So, as I said, we'll adjust around that and plan from here on accordingly.
Are you expecting Rory to get tagged once again? Obviously, there's been a topic of conversation now for a few weeks, and they've got guys like Connor Blakely who have done good jobs on him in the past. Yeah, well, he's the guy that's been doing their run with work. He's done it the last 4 weeks, so it's a reasonable assumption that you think he would go to one of our mids. Whether it's Rory or not, I'll leave that for them to decide. Do you think Rory, after how he performed last week against Brisbane, sort of figured out how to combat tagging a bit more?
Well, it's like everything. It's every week you're learning. Whether you're a player or a coach, you're learning all the time. And he got that confronted a couple of weeks ago, and I think he learnt over those 2 weeks. And certainly his performance last week suggested he was able to put into practice some of that learning.
How did Fremantle get through today? When we were there, he was to decide. Did he go through a fitness test today?
No, Troy wasn't able to train today, and he's unlikely to play this week. Unfortunately, he's still suffering from that heavy cork, so we expect he'll probably be up and running, and he should be right for next week.
In terms of the slow starts that have been plaguing the team a little bit this year, what have you talked to with the team about that? Is it a mindset thing, or when they come out they're just not firing on all full cylinders when they in quarter one?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one, the quarter one side of things, and look, there's clearly a trend there. So we accept and we recognise there's a trend there in terms of what we're doing. And it's probably more based on, forgetting the scoreboard, it's probably based on more some key indicators that we look at and that we value across the whole game that we're not bringing in the first quarter for some reason. So we've had a good conversation with the players. And I think you're probably right, it's a combination of mindset and making sure that when they throw it down, we're ready to go, because we've been able to respond and we've been able to get ourselves back in and win some of those games that we've had poor first quarters. But ideally, we don't want to be starting that way going forward.
What about Josh Jenkins? Tom, did he show what you wanted last week?
Yeah, I was happy with his performance in the sample. The things we spoke to him about in terms of what we're looking for him to do, he was able to do some of those things, which is great. And he'll be a name up for consideration this afternoon at match committee.
How hard is it on the young boys, Jordan Gleach and Hugh Greenwood, coming in for a game and then still being having a good game, but then still being on the cusp? Is it hard to bring in a young boy and drop him the next week, or do you think they'll get a continued run at it?
Yeah, well, look, that's one of those things. It was great to give those guys an opportunity. I think you could see in the excitement on both their faces, and playing their first game is always a great moment for a young player. But that doesn't necessarily guarantee you continue games. It's you've got to earn those, and both those guys perform reasonably well. So again, we'll weigh that up at match committee as to whether we give them another opportunity, which is always nice to be able to give them a second game to feel actually what they can then produce, having gone through their first experience. But sometimes that doesn't happen. So we'll wait and see.
With Josh Jenkins, is it about him hitting the scoreboard, or is it more about the team things doing stuff with the ball, the pressure acts and stuff like that? You're sort of looking for him to become more involved? Yeah,
it certainly wasn't about hitting the scoreboard. It was about some of the key areas that we see with Josh when he's playing his best footy. And as I said previously, with the rib injury and the time out, we just felt like when he returned to play his form, and maybe part of that becomes confidence as well, wasn't to the level to perform at AFL. So we gave him the opportunity to go back, and he embraced it. He had a great attitude, and he brought really strong effort, which is what we're after.
But there's definitely a spot for him when he's playing his best in this Crows forward line.
I think he's proven over a number of years he's a quality AFL player. So it's about him getting back into that form to be able to deliver that on AFL stage.
Don, last year you used the fewest players in the competition. This year, through injuries and form, you've had to go to the well a little bit. Obviously, still one of the benchmarks in the comp. What does it say about you and your group that you've been able to keep performing at such a high level?
Well, ideally, we want every player on our list to keep getting better year after year. That's our aim and our driver. And I'm sure that's the players' aim and driver. So, even last week we had some great performances in the Sandful. It was a sluggish first half, but the guys really found some good form in the second half. And so at last week's game, there's probably a half dozen guys who would put their hand up and say, I'm in good form and I'm ready to play if you want to pick me. So that's the line we walk. That's the challenge we face in terms of building these young players and some of the guys who are outside the team back to being not only improving but capable and looking forward to opportunities at AFL. And it's a good position to be in. As I said, you want depth and you want guys in good form, putting pressure on for spots.
Don, just back on Brodie, if I could, given what we've seen, I guess, with Tex missing a week and with Jake missing a week, it's fair to say if he's not 100%, you'll take a cautious approach with him? Oh yeah, we do it with every player. I mean, we understand the rigours of AFL footy, and we understand what it takes to get through a game. And if you go into a game, there's certain injuries you can carry into a game and think, well, you can manage that. There's some you can't. Now we'll assess that in terms of what his awareness is tomorrow, how he moves, or Friday, depending when we decide to run him. And then what he's able to do, and then have a conversation with the player. And ultimately, the player has to be comfortable and confident that he can perform, not just play, perform at the level that's required for him and for the team.
The AFL's cracked down on the jumper punch. Some of the coaches have come out and supported it. Do you feel there was a real problem with the jumper punch in AFL football, and do you support the crackdown they want to do from the middle of the season?
Yeah, look, it's one of those things which I probably haven't been across the jumper punch, to be honest, but I can understand the AFL's reasonings behind wanting to crack down on that, and I think they've sent a pretty clear message to players that it's not going to be tolerated. So I'd expect the next guy who does a jumper punch is probably going to cop a week. So that's just the landscape that we exist in now, and the players will adapt as they always do around what's expected in those situations.
John, would you be upset one of your players was one of those guys that got rubbed out for a week, given Charlie Cameron whacked? Who was it against North Melbourne?
A North Melbourne player. Yeah, yeah, look, you don't want undisciplined acts, but we also have to understand that this is a man's game, and the players are out there, and there's things that are happening on the footy field which are going to get players who are already in a highly charged and emotive state. So we want to be playing aggressive footy, but we understand where the line is.
Don, that doesn't really come under your...
What's that?
What was the jumper punch?
I don't think they had jumper punches in my day. It was more a straightforward punch. They didn't have to worry about the jumper. The jumper was getting in the way of it.
On a pretty separate note, I wouldn't really come under your role, but Adelaide Oval's going to up the security given the events we've seen in Manchester. Is that reassuring as a playing group and for the 50,000 fans you hope that come along? Yeah, look, I think that's just a sign of the times we're living in. So I applaud them for taking that action. Obviously, we want people to come to the footy, enjoy coming to the footy, feel safe at the footy, and love the spectacle. We've got a big weekend for our footy club. We've got Indigenous round, which is something we embrace and we really love, and we're going to get some great Indigenous talent out there on the weekend, not only from our side but also from Fremantle with the Hill brothers, Michael Walters, Michael Johnson, to name a few that are out for them, and so it's going to be a great weekend for the footy club, for Indigenous players, and for representing all that they bring to the game, which is some of the great spectacles you'll see.
Speaking to Eddie yesterday, he said he wants to go a three-peat. He wants to get goal of the year from this round again, from Indigenous round. Do you expect something specky from him this weekend?
Well, I'd like to see it. Yeah, it'd be nice. Look, he's got a great record on this round, and he's he's a very proud Indigenous player, and I know he looks forward to this game, and he looks forward to celebrating Indigenous players in the comp. And if he was able to kick another goal like the one he kicked last year against GWS, it'd bring a smile on my face. Yeah.
He said his goals aren't that good.
He said that.
Yeah.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
Did you ever play with anyone that you go, right, he's capable of doing this? Like, I mean, Peter Matera, probably one of them back in the West Coast days, but...
Yeah, well, he was kicking more of them on the run than what Eddie's doing. No, it's unique. I've said it a number of times, but the thing about Eddie is he's not doing it. He's not doing it in a selfish way. He's doing it because that's the opportunity, or that's what presents. And as I said, if he can produce one of those on Saturday night, I think he'll keep 50,000 people happy as well.